Who knows the most endings? No one knows. Chop, chop, chop. A shave and a pancake or whatever?
Yeah, shave and a pancake.
Is that how it goes? Shave and a pancake? That doesn't make any sense. Shave and a haircut. A smoke and a pancake. There we go. Shave and a haircut. Who came up with this? It's a strange American tradition to eat pancakes and shave at the same time. I don't get it.
Really digging these rollover edges, man. This is good.
Yeah, this is a nice touch.
He's the guy.
Yeah. Good game, Will.
Yeah. Earlier today, this guitar had razor blades for frets, but Will.
And now you're over here
Now
spitting
it's
coffee on it.
Oh, did they get coffee on it?
A little bit.
There's some kind of cleaning solvent on there.
Does that taste like zippers?
It tastes like zippers. Weird. I was cutting red pepper yesterday for a salad, and I sliced into my finger.
Don't do that.
I was looking at it going like, you know, this is definitely how somebody cuts themselves. Like, ah! Manifest destiny. That's right. It was a good salad though. Had tuna on it. Little rush for you.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's some chord melody.
It was some chord melody. It was. Chord melody is when you play chord and a melody at the same time. .com. Get that domain name. Save it. Put something on it. You're welcome. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. Talking about chords.
You should go through that whole dissertation again.
Go through the whole dissertation. So, I think a lot of times, like, and you probably can attest to this. You've had this experience where people go, "Oh, you know, playing in an open tuning." It's like, is that because it's easier? I'm like, no, actually, asshole. It's a lot harder, especially if you actually want to play stuff on the guitar instead of, you know, just this 3 licks. You know, you actually have to relearn the fretboard. So, I went through the process of like. Kind of the problem-solving process for me was like the only thing I know about the fretboard and open tuning is that this is a root position major triad 1, 3, and 5. So I started by going, okay, well, I know that if this is my 1 chord, I can take the bottom root and drop it down a minor third to the 6th, right, to the 6th of the scale. And put that over the bottom, that gives me the relative minor 7. The relative minor, but it's a minor 7 chord. So figure, okay, well, there's my 1, there's my 6, then my 4, relative minor is a 2, 5, the relative minor is the 3. So just by kind of having that triad, I've got 6 chords that we use all the time, right? Yeah. So that was kind of the first place that started, and then I started thinking about, well, you know, like when I was playing standard tuning, I was really into like just learning inversions and running inversions and stuff like that. So I took that into heart with open tuning, and so that was kind of the first things, like learning the inversions of the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. And so that was kind of like step number 1. That was like I had everything that I needed for like a normal gig, as long as there wasn't like super tough changes. I could get through a gig with those chord shapes, and then I took it through the major scale. So taking the major scale on the D string, and each note has a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And then if we look at a major triad, 1, 3, and 5, it's made up of stacking thirds, right? 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5. So if I apply that same pattern to each position in the scale, so starting on 2, go up a third, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, then that makes our 2 minor chord. It's made of 2, 4, and 6. And then you keep going through that process, and then you eventually get 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, 3, 5, 7, 4, 6, 1, 5, 7, 2, 6, 1, 3, 7, 2, and 4, and then 1, 3, and 5 again. So it's important actually to take note of those numbers, even though it's a little labor intensive. You know, I think as guitar players we memorize shapes and positions and stuff a lot, but we're not really sort of passively considering what's going on there. So a lot of times, like, we'll go, okay, I'm on the 4 chord, and then you fish around for notes. So if I know that I've got, in a 4 chord, I've got a 4 and 6 and 1 from a major scale, from the key we're in, I can use that to help me find stuff when I don't know where it is. So I talk about the major scale as a measuring tape a lot of times, that you just sort of like, you know, you could map out from one place to another, and like there's relationships that look the same but happen in different places in the scale. Like on the 1 chord and the 4 chord and the 5 chord, they're all major triads. So if we were talking about how they relate to themselves, it's root, 3rd, and 5th. But looking at the 4 chord as it happens in the sequence in the key of D, so the G chord is 4, 6, and 1. So it's a lot of numbers to sort of keep track of. But so that was kind of the next step. And then the thing that we were talking about earlier is how you can exploit the tuning to get yourself through more inversions. So if I take this forgive my gross band-aid, first inversion of a 1 chord. So I got 3, 5, and 1 from the scale. Because the tuning is set up with there's 2 sets of octaves between the 1st string and the 4th string, and obviously the 4th string and the 6th string, right? Because we got, you know, open D, D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. So anything that happens on the 1st string or the 6th string, I can mirror with the same fret. So I can take this 4th fret and swap it for the first string. And then the same thing with the 2nd string and the 5th string. So if I learn the inversions across the fretboard, 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 3, and then we start over at the 12th fret, I can do the same thing in the middle of the fretboard horizontally. Well, almost. So, but I have root position, first inversion, second inversion, then we just start over. So, and then you can do that from each position. So I kind of satellite off the D, G, and B strings. I like them because it's like that's where the triad naturally occurs. So if we go to the second inversion, that one's kind of obvious, but it's worth considering. So you get them right then and there. And then what we were talking about earlier was how if you play a 7th chord, for example, so we've got 4 different notes happening at the same time, I can swap these. So in this chord, I got 1, 3, 5, and 7. So I've got the 1 on the 1st string and the 1 on the 4th string and 7 on the 1st string. I can swap places with them while the 2 voices from the major 7 chord stay put, so the 3 and the 5 stay where they are. Sorry, I'm running out of fingers here. And then if I invert it, 1, 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7, 1, or so I'm doing that same thing. So I've got the 3 on the 4th string and the 1 on the 1st string, and I can just swap them. So now I've got the 1 and the 3. So it's always the same notes, but they're just flipping positions. And then what's the next one? So it's awesome. You know, whatever you can, and you can do it, of course, in the middle, on the middle strings as well, for the same reason, because you got the 2nd string and the 5th string tuned. So. So I don't know. It's like it kind of takes what a lot of people go, oh, it's, you know, it's limited to being like, to me it actually opens up in a really cool way. Guys.
Well, that's all fine and good, but have you got a wiggle stick on yours?
I got a wiggle stick on mine. I don't know what to do with it.
Let's check it out. I got a wiggle stick with
Seth,
for
show
you.
us your wiggle stick.
Let me break that down for you though.
Yes. Can you?
So what's happening is this guy's bending a whole tone
Yeah.
when I push that down.
Yeah.
And he returns fairly quickly, so.
That's
You hit it
awesome.
twice on the
He
up.
returns quickly.
It sounds like you're doing something really complicated, but it's actually really easy.
I mean, you are doing something very complicated. You are doing something very complicated. You just make it look easy.
That's right.
He returns quickly, unlike my cousin who still owes me money. That is so much harder than it looks. Hey, do some of that crazy bender stuff.
Oh,
Seth, can you turn your amp down just a smidge?
yes.
Maybe turn your whole body this way. A little
Yeah.
bit.
I think I explained this a little bit the last time I was here.
Oh, is that more coffee? Hang tight.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Let's see.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen that video?
No.
Oh, I'm about to change it. Just do it. Do it.
So, the way that I've got this set up, this guy is a whole tone,
Yeah.
and this guy is a half tone.
Yeah.
So what that means is if I'm just using this triad here, and that's my one chord, when I push them both down, it becomes a 4.
Yeah.
So, right?
Yeah,
Same thing essentially.
So if you take the one chord, 1, 3, and 5, 3 goes up a half step to 4, 5 goes up a half step or a full step to 6, then you have 1, 4, and 6. Second inversion of the 4 chord. That's why it's important to know this stuff, guys, because then you could do cool shit like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I want to play this chord with the bender.
Yeah.
And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go where, what would normally be my 5 position up here, and I bend that same triad. And
So you're
becomes the
basically
1.
going to the 4 chord of the 5 chord. So if you count up the scale, 5, 6, 7, 1. Mind blown.
And it sounds like a pedal steel player. And what I'm doing is I'm actually holding...
Only you're not crazy.
Exactly. Only I'm not crazy. I'm holding this G lever down the whole time. And I'm only working this B for the inflection to make it sound like a steel player. So,
Love that.
playing that 1,
Yeah.
it sounds super whiny like a steel player. And,
Yeah, but what's the chord sound like? No.
exactly.
But you've also got because you know anybody could learn to do like a bend the 5 up to the 6 and make a. But you've also got there's a way that you do it, where you get like the motion as the chord goes into the 4 chord. There's a very specific motion that steel players do. That it's like the distance from the one note to the next note and how quick you get there is what makes it sound like a steel.
Yeah, you
And
can't
as
just-
opposed to a
you can't
guitar
just go-
player. Yeah,
just
exactly. So
squeeze on
and
it.
then there's also the volume swell, which is also super. It's not just a swell. It's like there's a very maybe you're not even conscious of it, but it's really it's very, or maybe you are conscious of it. I don't know, but
I
it's
think
very specific
my
to get it to sound like that.
My biggest thing about the volume pedal is that on this thing all the way back, you can still hear it.
Right.
So and that's why I want to have a taper adjust on a volume pedal so that I can get a smoother taper for the full length of that throw. And it's not a dead cut all the way back.
Right.
I find myself riding forward on a volume pedal that's a dead cut all the way back. So I like this one because it has this taper adjust. And this one doesn't have a pot in it, so it's not going to get that crackly noise that some of those other ones will get eventually as they
Right.
age. So, but yeah, the pedal steel lick thing is, it works over the whole neck. You just got to know where to place it. So I'm playing that, that's position 2. It'd be like my 2 chord. But if I'm playing it there, it becomes a 5.
Right.
So 2, 1, 5, 4, and then if you play 1 with the bender, it becomes a 4.
Right. So basically, with those benders, no matter where you are, it goes up a fourth. And so if you have to be aware of where you're at diatonically in order to make sure that you're getting the right chord. But it always goes up a fourth. So if you count up 4 from 2 in the scale, you get 5.
Yeah.
That's how you get that.
Exactly. Science.
Science. Another cool thing about these bender things that I like about it is, so if we just go back to what I was talking about with the chord scale thing, the relative minor of a major key, if we count up the scale to the 6th chord and we look at the notes that are in the 6th chord, so the 6th chord is made up of the 6, the 1, which is the minor third of the 6th chord, but it's the 1 of the scale, and the 3, which is the 5th of the 6th chord, but it's the 3 of the scale. So it's made up of 6, 1, and 3, which is only one note away from being a major triad, 1, 3, and 5. So the difference between the 1 chord and its relative minor, the 6, is only one note. So in order to make a major chord into its relative minor, you raise the 5th up to a 6. And of course, ideally it's not wickedly out of tune like mine is, because I'm an amateur with these benders. But so you could go, so 1 chord to the 6 minor, or 4 to the 2 minor, and 5 to the 3 minor. That's another little trick. It's not as cool as what Seth does, but you know.
Was he doing that right, Seth?
Yeah, he had it.
Okay, but play some more cool stuff. And the wind cracks merry. Yeah, cool. Very cool. Indeed. Here's a cool bender one that I can't do any of that stuff, but one that I really like is when you make a 5 chord. So I'm playing 7, 2, and 5. This particular inversion it has to be. So if you push the bender down, you get an augmented on the 5 chord. So and then that gives you an augmented, or like basically a 5 chord with a 9 and an augmented 5th. So it's like that's one I stumbled on by accident. Anyway, that's the only one. That's my only move. It's just that.
You've been practicing for weeks to bust it out.
I'm just like, ooh, yeah! Here's my chance.
Look at
No.
my wheels.